Hello, and thanks for stopping by. Today I'm in Brixton, an area of London which, amongst other things, is known for its large colourful murals, many of which were painted in the 1970s and 80s. This large painting, for example, can be spotted on Stockwell Park Walk, behind Brixton Academy, whilst this food-themed mural, no doubt intended as a reference to the local market, can be seen inside Brixton railway station. A more recent artwork is this tribute to the late great David Bowie, who was born on nearby Stansfield Road in 1947, which can be viewed on Tunstall Road, just across from Brixton Tube Station. There's one particular mural I'd like to concentrate on today though. It's on the western end of Cold Harbour Lane, a short walk from the tube station. As we make our way there, I should warn you that what you're about to see is pretty unsettling. I'd say it's by far the scariest public artwork in London, if not the entire country. It's called Nuclear Dawn. Looming over Cold Harbour Lane at an impressive 4 stories tall, Nuclear Dawn was unveiled on the 11th of February 1981. As seen in my previous video, in which we looked at a strange nuclear bunker near Crystal Palace, I'll link that below in case you missed it, this was an era in which the Cold War was still very icy, and nuclear paranoia, namely the fear of an apocalyptic Third World War between America and the USSR, was high.
Nuclear explosions are caused by weapons such as H-bombs or atom bombs. They are like ordinary explosions, only many times more powerful. They cause great heat and blast. They also make a cloud of deadly dust, which falls slowly to the ground. This is what is called fallout. You can protect yourself and your family, and later on we will show you what steps to take.
As you can see, the colours in the Nuclear Dawn mural are strikingly bold and vivid, and that's because the piece was painstakingly restored in 2021. The team who carried out this fantastic work really do deserve huge credit, because before it was given the loving care and attention it deserved, the mural was in a very sorry state indeed, having become faded and dilapidated over the course of 40 years. And that was before you even factored in the huge amount of graffiti which had been scrawled across the mural's lower half. The artist who originally designed Nuclear Dawn was Brian Barnes, a political activist and specialist in such works, who helped create a number of murals in London as community projects. You can see Brian as a much younger man in this wonderful documentary from 1978 entitled Morgan's Wall, which is all about London's mural scene at the time. I'll link the whole film below because it really is worth a watch. For Nuclear Dawn, Brian was joined by fellow mural artist Dale McRae, and work on the project commenced in the summer of 1980. Ordinary household paints were used, and, to reach the higher sections, a rickety cradle was employed, which, according to some who saw it, wasn't very safe at all. The canvas was, and still is, on the side of an old apartment building named Carlton Mansions, which dates from 1891. Initially intended as homes for commuters using nearby Brixton railway station, Carlton Mansions had fallen into disrepair by the early 1980s, and at the time Nuclear Dawn was created, the building was a popular squat. Indeed, many of the squatters living here mucked in to help with the painting. Like the mural, Carlton Mansions have since been scrubbed up, and they now contain fancy office space, a reflection of the so-called gentrification which Brixton has been undergoing in recent years. For several decades, the area in front of Nuclear Dawn was open space, which meant passers-by could catch a good view of the mural from Cold Harbour Lane. Well, initially that is. Apparently there were some complaints that the giant skeleton and agonised screaming faces were causing upset to some children. Well, who could have predicted that? It's perhaps no coincidence then that a number of trees were later planted close by, which eventually ended up obscuring the mural somewhat. For the artist though, Brian stood by his vision and later joked that he'd like to see the skull touched up in luminous paint. The open patch of land has since been built upon and is now occupied by Brixton House, an arts and community centre containing 2 theatres. Brixton House is closely tucked beside the mural, which, despite preventing a wider view, has the advantage of allowing you to get up close and personal with the artwork. Let's have a look then at some of the details. As we've already seen, The mural's centrepiece is a towering skeletal figure, not unlike the Grim Reaper, which is draped in the flags of the USA and the USSR, and is shown striding across London, whilst nuclear mushroom clouds, the uppermost of which contains a map of the world, billow up in the background. The composition of Nuclear Dawn is based upon an equally terrifying illustration entitled Satan Sowing Tares, which was made in 1882 by the Belgian artist Felician Rops. In fact, it appears that the mural was originally intended to be more or less a copy of Rops' image, before it was decided to adapt it for the purposes of an anti-nuclear theme. Whilst both of these figures have taken on the pose of a farmer sowing his field, they are certainly not scattering conventional seeds. Rops' figure is hurling people across a 19th century industrial hellscape, whilst the Nuclear Dawn skeleton is flinging nuclear missiles around. To be more specific, these are in fact American cruise missiles, and that's because when Brian drafted the mural in 1980, it had recently been announced that such weapons were soon to be stationed at Greenham Common Air Base in Berkshire, a controversial decision which led to the famous Women's Peace Camp being established there. To the side of the mural, a hand can be seen sending up doves of peace, which gradually transform into the symbol for CND, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. A way of saying, I suppose, that this is one way to address the threat. Unsurprisingly, the Nuclear Dawn mural did go on to appear on protest posters during the 1980s. For me personally, the most intriguing details are lower down in the painting, amongst the architecture which makes up London. The skyline we see here represents the capital as it was when the mural was created. There are of course no shards, gherkins or other such clusters of towering skyscrapers to be seen. The Houses of Parliament, which have been trod upon by a big pony foot, are of course instantly recognisable. But how about this building? This is the former St Stephen's Club, which was indeed located opposite Parliament for many years. It was demolished in the early 1990s to make way for Portcullis House. Squeezed up beside the St Stephen's building, these green-roofed blocks seem to represent the Ministry of Defence, which is quite an appropriate building to include given the mural's subject matter, whilst these spires appear to represent Whitehall Court. Back over at Parliament Square, we're presented with a cutaway showing the interior of a bunker, in which various VIPs are granted the privilege of being shielded from the nuclear holocaust. This fellow with the bow tie is Sir Horace Cutler, who was the leader of the former GLC, the Greater London Council, between 1977 and 1981. Also present are the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and the American President, Ronald Reagan. Prince Charles is cosied up down there too. He would have been in the news a lot during this period, as his marriage to Diana Spencer was scheduled to take place in the summer of 1981. There are several other figures in the bunker whose identity I'm not too sure about though. Could this be the former Prime Minister and Labour leader Jim Callaghan? As for this fellow with the cap, I have no idea at all. If you have any thoughts as to who he is, or who these partly obscured characters may be, please do let me know in the comments. Crossing to the other side of the Thames, we can see County Hall, the former GLC headquarters, which today is home to various tourist attractions such as the London Aquarium, and behind it this unusual structure which is the former GLC's annex, a large office block which was once voted one of the ugliest buildings in Britain. The annex closed in 1986 when the GLC was abolished, and remained empty for 20 years until it was demolished in 2006. The site is now home to the Park Plaza Westminster Bridge Hotel. Also visible along the riverfront are the Royal Festival Hall, St Thomas's Hospital, and Lambeth Palace, although being the early 1980s, there is of course no London Eye. As it's home to Nuclear Dawn, Brixton is also strongly represented within the mural. This is the spire of Lambeth Town Hall, which stands on Brixton Hill, whilst this building, tucked behind the skeleton shin bone and with its distinctive zigzag pattern, is Southwick House, a large block of flats located just moments away from the mural. When Southwick House was being planned in the late 1960s and early 70s, a motorway flyover, part of a network termed Ringway 1, was penciled in to sweep past these flats, and as such, small windows were incorporated as a means of reducing traffic noise. Although the motorway never materialised, the narrow windows were kept, an imposing look which led to Southwick House being nicknamed the Barrier Block. If you look very closely beside the depiction of Southwick House in the mural, you'll be rewarded with a special Easter egg, a tiny representation of the Nuclear Dawn mural itself, essentially a mural within a mural. Sadly, Brian Barnes passed away in December 2021, although fortunately he was able to witness the loving restoration of his masterpiece before he died. If you look in the bottom right hand corner of the mural, you'll see that a tiny cartoon figure of Brian, complete with paintbrush in hand, has been added. A lovely little tribute, I think you'll agree. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at Brixton's Nuclear Dawn mural, even if it is quite scary. Having said that though, can you think of any other public artworks in London, or anywhere else for that matter, which are even more unsettling? If so, please be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you're happy to, please do give a like or share, as that's very much appreciated and it really does help the channel to grow. As ever, a huge thanks to all of you who left comments in the previous video on the Pear Tree House Bunker. There really were some interesting thoughts and memories there. And if you're a new subscriber, welcome, it's wonderful to have you here. If you haven't yet subscribed, it would be wonderful if you could please consider doing so. And if you do sign up, don't forget to click the bell icon too, as this will ensure that you receive a notification whenever I publish a new video. You may also be interested to know that I have 2 books published, The Knowledge, Train Your Brain Like a Cabbie, and Waterloo, A History of London's Busiest Terminus, both of which are available online. I have an Etsy store too, Rob's Online Designs, where you'll find an array of hand-illustrated mugs featuring tube trains, taxis, buses and more. Links are all in the description. For now, thanks again friends, stay well and please be sure to stay tuned.